Hello and welcome to Newsfeed, your daily dose of what people are talking about online, from news stories to what's trending. Now, the Ukrainian grain ship Razoni has completed its inspection and sailed down the Istanbul Strait on its way to the Lebanese port of Tripoli. Carrying 26,000 tons of corn, it's the first grain ship to leave Ukraine since Russia's attack began in February. To avoid mine waters, the ship had a strict route and it was tracked by satellite to ensure a safe voyage. The ship's inspection was carried out in the Black Sea north of Istanbul by officials from Turkey, Russia, Ukraine, and the United Nations. The ship's safe passage so far has been widely praised. It's hoped that releasing Ukraine's grain exports will help relieve the food shortages being felt in many places around the world. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba tweeted that the Razoni's arrival in Turkish waters marked a day of relief for the world, and especially for those in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. NGO founder Joanne Sonnenschein says although this first ship is only a drop in a very small bucket, given the current food crisis, progress is positive. And an Afghanistan-based journalist hopes more shipments will follow because that could mean a decrease in international food prices. The blockade on Ukrainian ports has been blamed for the rise in global food prices, particularly across the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky estimates that around 75 million tons of grain could be stuck in his country this year. The top three destinations for Ukraine's wheat are Egypt, Indonesia, and Bangladesh, where nearly 35 million people are experiencing food insecurity. African countries have also been badly impacted by the conflict. The continent is facing a shortage of more than 30 million tons of food, which has led to a 40% rise in prices. And in Yemen, the price of flour has risen by 42% this year, while bread is up by 25%. The UN had already reported unprecedented levels of acute hunger in the country, along with one of the highest rates of child malnutrition in the world. It's hoped now that grain is leaving Ukraine, the cost of food will begin to stabilize. There are already 16 more grain ships waiting at the port of Odessa with 600,000 tons of foodstuff on board.
Today, the first ship with Ukrainian grain has reached the Bosphorus. She made it through the special corridor in the Black Sea that had been negotiated in order to unblock our ports. Our goal now is regularity. When one ship leaves a port, others should be waiting for their turn, being loaded or reaching a port.
U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has met Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen during a stop on her Asia tour. The visit has deeply angered China. Pelosi is the most senior politician in 25 years to visit Taiwan, a self-rule island that China claims and sees as a breakaway province. Departing from the secrecy ahead of her arrival in Taiwan, Pelosi's meeting with Tsai was broadcast live.
Today, the world faces a choice between democracy and autocracy. America's determination to preserve democracy here in Taiwan and around the world remains ironclad.
Pelosi reiterated Washington's commitment to supporting democracy on Twitter, explaining that her discussions with Taiwan's leadership reaffirms the U.S.'s support for its partner and shared interests for a free and open Indo-Pacific region. While Taiwan's president tweeted that Pelosi's visit not only reflects strong U.S. congressional support for bilateral ties, but also sends a message to the world that democracies stand together in the face of challenges. Now, this obviously didn't go down well with China. Beijing has condemned Pelosi's visit as extremely dangerous and announced that its military will conduct live-fire drills in the sea surrounding Taiwan starting Thursday. To say China is furious is an understatement.
Pelosi's visit to the Taiwan region is an outright farce. Under the guise of democracy, the US is infringing on China's sovereignty. Taiwan's Tsai Ing-wen and those of her ilk try to rely on the power of the US to seek Taiwan's independence, which betrays China's overall national interest.
So Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan not only rattled China, it rattled the entire internet. The U.S. speaker's name trended on Twitter, TikTok, Weibo, you name it. On the Chinese microblogging platform, patriotic hashtags trended, including sentences like these, which were shared billions of times. The traffic caused the website to crash, and despite slow load times, the outrage on Weibo still hit fever pitch, with irate netizens calling for stronger military and economic countermeasures against the U.S. and Taiwan. Pelosi also caused the website FlightRadar24.com to crash. Her 7-hour journey from Malaysia to Taiwan became the site's most tracked flight, with the queue to watch the flight's journey exceeding 22 hours. By the time SPAR 19 landed in Taiwan, it was being tracked by more than 700,000 people, making it FlightRadar24's most followed live flight of all time. In total, almost 3 million people tracked at least part of her flight between Kuala Lumpur and Taipei. Of course, netizens have been analyzing Pelosi's so-called surprise trip to Taiwan.
Well, she said it was a show of solidarity with the people of Taiwan. But she also said that was as the world faced a choice between autocracy and democracy. So this is much bigger than the island of Taiwan. This is pretty much about the state of the world order for Pelosi.
All right, nice dance moves there on that Washpo TikTok. All right, speaking of TikTok, the Chinese social media giant has been making headlines lately, and not just because of its rivalry with big tech companies. Now, TikTok's association with Beijing is continuing to raise eyebrows, especially in the US. And this new leak may be the cherry on top. Internal documents obtained by Gizmodo show that TikTok's employees have been instructed to downplay the app's relationship with China, its parent company ByteDance, and mentions of artificial intelligence. The leaked files also include suggestions on how to deflect any tricky questions from the media. It seems the company is doing its best to distance itself from its own roots. In a landmark referendum, Kansas has voted to continue protecting the right to abortions. Residents were asked to choose yes or no in a new bill amending the state's constitution to remove abortion protections. The bill, titled Value Them Both, was introduced by the state's Republican lawmakers. Campaigners against the amendment celebrated the results as they came in. The referendum was the first time that abortion rights have been put to a popular vote on a statewide scale since the Supreme Court reversed Roe v. Wade. President Joe Biden celebrated the news on Twitter. POTUS shared this tweet calling the results an important victory for every American who believes that women should be able to make their own health decisions without government interference. But it's not just a win for abortion rights activists. The results may be a positive sign for Democrats in the upcoming midterm elections. The vote in November could sway the Senate and the House towards Republicans if Democrats lose several states. But this result in Kansas, which is a traditionally Republican state and goes against the ruling of a Republican-backed court, offers some hope for the Democrats. Human rights lawyer Qasim Rashid summarizes the significance of the vote in this tweet. He points out that in the 2020 presidential elections, Republican nominee Donald Trump won the state by 15 points. So a landslide win of 26 points for abortion rights shows just how much the state can be swayed. And according to election officials, there was a visible increase in voter turnout, meaning midterm elections may turn out differently than expected.
I think early voting as of this morning, we have about 2,000 more early voters than we did back in 2018, and we have a little over 1,000 more voters who requested a ballot than we did back in 2018. So we definitely have an uptick in voter registration and people getting out to vote.
All right, on to what's trending. A bitter custody battle between Britain and Greece continues to rumble on over the so-called Parthenon, or Elgin marbles. Now, made in the 5th century, the statues show Olympian deities and other ancient figures. They were acquired by Lord Elgin in 1801. Athens says it was done illegally and has been demanding the statues return. In fact, there is a space kept reserved for them in the Acropolis Museum in the Greek capital, but the British Museum insists it will only loan the marbles to Greece on the condition they are returned. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has pushed back on the offer, saying, "Baby steps are not enough. We want big steps." And if you're wondering how those heavy artworks ended up in London, here's a quick history lesson for you.
There used to be a gigantic frieze right up there. Half of the frieze is inside the Acropolis Museum, right by here. But the other half was taken a few hundred years ago by a Scottish lord by the name of Lord Elgin. His real name was Thomas Bruce. He came over here because he had a true deep interest into Greek history. And he came with his men in order to restore and in order to study all the different sculptures.
All right, our next story, there's been another crypto hack. The blockchain Bridge Nomad, which allows users to swap tokens between protocols, had almost $200 million drained from its accounts. More than $1 billion have been stolen from other crypto projects this year alone. But what sets this one apart is how it was done. A bug in the main smart contract allowed anyone with a basic understanding of the code to authorize withdrawals from Nomad's funds to their own crypto wallet. And as people noticed what was happening, they joined in by copy-pasting in their own details. So instead of a coordinated attack, this turned into a mass looting. Some online are calling it the first ever decentralized crypto hack.
The auditor was able to send the message through their system, through the bridge, and even though there was an error in the middle, he got an okay message at the end.
There were people that were going and interacting with a smart contract and getting $3,000 to $20,000 just the snap of their fingers by just copying exactly what the hacker was doing, making this the first fully decentralized robbery that ever happened.
However, not all the people who are copying and pasting the illicit contract were planning to keep the funds for themselves, as we had quite a few tweets like this one down here, this one, and this one with people saying that they wanted to return the hacked funds. And all of this happened after Nomad raised $22 million in their seed round and got backed from different companies such as Polychain, Wintermute, and Coinbase Ventures. But who knows where Nomad is going from here, as they went from almost $190 million in assets to under $2K in under an hour.
Another man desperately trying to recover his crypto is James Howells. Now, 9 years ago, the Welsh engineer accidentally threw away a hard drive. Problem is, it contained 8,000 Bitcoin. At today's price, that would be worth more than $187 million. So he's come up with the only rational solution: dig through the city's entire landfill. Now, his plan is to use artificial intelligence to filter through all of the trash. Then a team of experts will go through each flagged item by hand, and robot dogs will be used to patrol the site. Howells says he's gotten $11 million from venture capitalists to fund his mission, but the city council has so far refused to grant him access, saying it's an ecological hazard. But Howells has promised that if he ever finds the Bitcoin, he'll donate a portion to the city, including $50 worth of Bitcoin for every resident. And movie studios have been axing projects over financial concerns. The latest victim is the highly anticipated Batgirl movie. The adaptation of the DC Comics character casts well-known actors like Michael Keaton, Brandon Fraser, and Leslie Grace to play the titular character. But it seems the studio didn't think the movie had blockbuster quality and chose to drop it entirely, despite it being in post-production and costing over $70 million. Yikes. NASA's super telescope, the James Webb, is continuing on its mission to dazzle humanity one image at a time. Its latest release of photos is from Cartwheel Galaxy, and they tell the chaotic story of a rare ring galaxy.
We have a new image from JWST. Behold, the Cartwheel Galaxy. But wait, this is what it looked like when we first captured it in 1996. And this in 2018 to this. 2022 from JWST. JWST is truly remarkable. But anyways, this Cartwheel Galaxy is located about 500 million light years from Earth. And it's about 1.5 times the size of our Milky Way galaxy. Now, why does it look like this? This is a ring galaxy, and this is what happens when a large spiral galaxy like our own collides with a smaller galaxy. In the middle here, we have a ton of really hot gas, a black hole, and a lot of really young stars. And in the outer ring, we have a lot of supernovas and star formations. And then, of course, these two really large galaxies amidst a backdrop of tons of other galaxies.
Stellar images indeed. And that brings us to the end of our show. Share your thoughts and ideas with us on our YouTube channel. Do subscribe too. See you same time tomorrow.